The year is 1914. Europe is locked in a brutal war of attrition, millions dying in the trenches of France and Belgium. But far from the Western Front, another story unfolds, one of calculation and ambition. While Europe bled, Japan saw its moment to rise. For Japan, this was not a war of attrition, but a war of acquisition. No Japanese soldiers fought at the Somme or Verdun. Instead, warships steamed across the Pacific, and ultimatums were delivered with surgical precision. Japan entered the Great War on its own terms, using the chaos in Europe as cover. While the world watched the carnage in Flanders, Japan quietly dismantled a rival empire's colonial holdings and set the stage for its own dominance in Asia. We often remember World War I as a European tragedy, but for Japan, it was a stunning victory, one with minimal cost and maximum gain. This victory would reshape the balance of power in the Pacific and set the stage for even greater conflict a generation later. This is the story of that forgotten victory. How a nation, recently emerged from isolation, used the world's greatest conflict to its advantage. How Japan expanded its empire with speed and efficiency, while the West tore itself apart. We'll see how this triumph fueled a new era of militarism and ambition in Japan, and how decisions made in Tokyo between 1914 and 1918 echoed through the decades, leading, ultimately, to Pearl Harbor. The war in the shadows would change the world. Let's begin. The assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand triggered a chain reaction. Europe plunged into war, its great powers consumed by the conflict. For Tokyo, this was not a crisis, but an opportunity. Japan had modernized rapidly, defeating China in 1895 and Russia in 1905, and now sought recognition as an equal to the West. The war in Europe was a golden chance to realize imperial ambitions in China and the Pacific. With Britain, France, and Germany focused on Europe, their Asian colonies and trade routes were left exposed. Their armies were bogged down, their navies preoccupied, their factories consumed by the war effort. Asia was left unguarded. The global conflict was the perfect distraction. Japan's entry into the war was not about ideology or defending small nations. It was a pragmatic, strategic move. The goal: seize German colonial possessions in Asia and the Pacific with minimal resistance. It was also a chance to assert dominance over a weakened China. For Japan, the Great War was not a global crusade, it was a regional power play. The world's eyes were on Europe, but Japan's gaze was fixed on Asia. The stage was set for a quiet, calculated expansion. While Europe burned, Japan prepared to act. The opportunity was too great to ignore, and Japan would not let it slip away. To understand Japan's entry into the war, we must go back to 1902 and the Anglo-Japanese alliance. This pact gave Britain a powerful partner in East Asia and allowed the Royal Navy to focus on Germany. For Japan, it was recognition as an equal and a security guarantee. The alliance emboldened Japan to pursue its interests, knowing Britain would deter other European powers. It played a key role in Japan's victory over Russia in 1905, cementing its status as a major military power. By 1914, the alliance was no longer with an upstart, but with a proven victor. When war broke out, Britain requested Japan's help against German warships in Asia. For London, it was a treaty obligation. For Tokyo, the perfect pretext for expansion. The alliance provided legitimacy for Japan's campaign. Japan could claim it was honoring its ally, while pursuing its own goals. The diplomatic stage was set. Japan was ready to act. The world would soon see the consequences. On August 15, 1914, Japan issued an ultimatum to Germany: withdraw its warships from Asian waters and surrender its leased territory in China's Shandong Peninsula, including Tsingtao. Germany, fully committed in Europe, could not defend its distant colonies. With no response from Berlin, Japan declared war on August 23. But Japan's war was limited. Its target was German possessions in Asia, not the European front. The decision was driven by expansionists in Tokyo, who saw this as a once-in-a-lifetime chance to solidify Japan's dominance in East Asia. Publicly, Japan cited loyalty to the Anglo-Japanese alliance. Privately, it was about imperial profit. Britain, uneasy about Japan's ambitions, had little choice but to consent. Japan's first target, the fortress of Tsingtao, Germany's pride in the east. The operation would be swift and decisive. Japan was free to act and the world's attention was elsewhere. The campaign would showcase Japan's military prowess. The empire was on the move. The conquest of Tsingtao would be the opening act. The real war for Japan had begun. The West barely noticed, but Asia would never be the same. Tsingtao was more than a port. It was a symbol of German power in Asia, heavily fortified but isolated. In September 1914, over 23,000 Japanese troops landed on the Shandong Peninsula, joined by a small British force. The siege began, with Japanese artillery and even aircraft used for reconnaissance, a first in military history. Outnumbered and outgunned, the German defenders held out for 2 months. On November 7th, the German governor surrendered. The rising sun flag flew over Tsingtao. The victory was swift, decisive, and cheap. Fewer than 500 Japanese casualties. While Europe lost hundreds of thousands at Ypres, Japan gained a strategic port at minimal cost. It was a textbook operation. Efficient, focused, and successful. Japan had achieved its primary objective. The campaign of expansion was just beginning. The world barely noticed. While the army took Tsingtao, the Imperial Japanese Navy moved swiftly across the Pacific. Germany's island chains, the Marianas, Carolines, and Marshalls, were lightly defended, vital as coaling stations and naval bases. Japanese warships faced no resistance. The islands fell one by one. By year's end, Japan controlled all of Germany's Pacific territories north of the equator. This bloodless conquest extended Japan's defensive perimeter thousands of miles. The Navy gained a network of forward bases, surprising even Britain and Australia. Australia quickly seized German New Guinea, dividing the spoils. Japan's gains were immense, the cost negligible. While Europe was mired in slaughter, Japan built a Pacific empire for free. The war in Asia was one of opportunistic expansion, not sacrifice. The world's focus remained elsewhere. As Japan expanded abroad, its home front boomed. The war in Europe created a global demand for goods. Japan's factories filled the gap. Shipping companies expanded, carrying goods worldwide. Japan became a workshop for the Allies, exporting munitions, uniforms, and supplies. Profits soared. Japan transformed from debtor to creditor nation. The new rich Narakin emerged, fueling national confidence and military strength. When the war ended, Japan claimed its reward, a seat at the Paris Peace Conference. For the first time, Japan sat with the world's great powers, helping redraw the global map. The Treaty of Versailles granted Japan control of Shandong and the Pacific Islands it had seized. These were tremendous diplomatic victories. Japan had achieved every wartime goal: expanded empire, booming economy, global recognition. From Tokyo's perspective, the Great War was an unqualified success. The world order had shifted. Japan was now a first-class power. Even as Japan fought alongside the Allies, it pursued a more aggressive agenda in China. In January 1915, Japan presented the secret 21 demands to China, aimed at turning China into a virtual protectorate. The demands sought economic control, territorial concessions, and influence over China's government and military. International outcry, especially from the US and Britain, forced Japan to drop the most extreme demands. But China still had to accept the rest. A national humiliation that fueled anti-Japanese sentiment and Chinese nationalism. The episode revealed Japan's true ambitions: hegemony over East Asia. It damaged Japan's reputation and created deep distrust with the West. While Japan was an ally in Europe, it was seen as a predatory rival in Asia. The seeds of future conflict were sown. Japan emerged from World War I more powerful and confident than ever. It controlled new territories, its economy boomed, and its military was respected. But this success emboldened militarists, who saw aggression as the path to greatness. The lesson: when the world is in chaos, fortune favors the bold. Yet victory bred tension. China's humiliation sparked the May 4th movement, fueling decades of bitterness. In the West, suspicion grew. The US now saw Japan as a Pacific rival, leading to a naval arms race. The islands Japan seized in 1914 would become battlegrounds in World War II. The bases built then would support Japan's southern expansion and the attack on Pearl Harbor. The secret victory of World War I laid the groundwork for the Pacific War. In the end, Japan's triumph was a short-term victory that led to long-term catastrophe. The path from Tsingtao in 1914 led to Manchuria, to all-out war in China, and finally to Hiroshima and Nagasaki. The The story of Japan in the Great War is a reminder, history is connected, and victories in the shadows can cast long dark shadows of their own. The world would never be the same.